name is Stefanie Maegan. You're listening to Broke Girl Therapy. Because therapy is too expensive. You're listening to Broke Girl Therapy. Broke Girl Therapy.
Cool. Hold on, can I do a few like throat checks?
Yeah. Oh my god, y'all. Go.
We're both like,
we're like in the middle of COVID, and she's like,
I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
am vaxxed.
I'm vaccinated too.
I'm vaccinated as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah. How's my hair? Is it okay?
It looks good. I love that.
Can
Are you
y'all
guys
hear me?
identical twins?
We're not.
We're not totally sure.
We don't know. Yeah,
so
we actually don't
one
know.
doctor told my mom we were fraternal, and the other doctor told my mom we were identical. So
I think you guys are identical.
And she doesn't know how many placentas came out. So
Oh shit.
Who's paying attention at that point?
Right. Exactly. So it is what it is. Oh my god, are you guys ready to get started?
We are.
Okay.
I want to say I really like your intro music.
Broke Girl?
Yeah, Broke Girl Therapy.
Broke
I was like, yeah.
Fun fact, my ex-boyfriend actually made that theme song.
Really?
Yeah.
Dope.
Shout out to him. He's a great guy. Didn't work, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's okay.
Yeah, and then you move on to the next dick.
Exactly. There's more dick
There's
right around
a
the
lot
corner.
of dicks. There's so many
much
dick.
Under the sea.
Like really beautiful dicks out there. Yeah.
There's so many great dicks. That's why I always tell them, like, the dick is not worth it. That's like my motto. I have it on a t-shirt because they're like, oh my god, but it's so good. I'm like, move on. Obviously, it's not good for you.
No, and I always say too, like there's such a scarcity mentality in dating where everyone's like, oh my god, I found this person, I love them, like they're so awesome, we have great sex, we have a great connection, and they're like, I want to hold on to them because like this is the only person I'm ever gonna have this with. I'm like,
No.
nah, man, there's another tall ass white guy with a phenomenal dick that works in tech right around the corner.
Seriously. It's so true. Okay, let me make the introductions. Hi, guys. It's me, Stefanie Maegan, your host of Broke Girl Therapy. And guess the fuck what? We have a Cami and motherfucking Nikki in the motherfucking building.
We're so excited.
Yes. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, you're probably like, where the fuck are you? We're in Patch's studio in Hollywood. Shout out to David. He is our audio engineer, if he's even there. Yeah, there he is. And we're just, fucking being professionals and shit and drinking wine in the studio and talking about dick.
It's really good rosé, just throwing that
Yeah,
out
I
there.
chugged my wine. So
I feel like you're drunk already.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I should get some water. I also can't move my neck, so I'm over here like, where's the agua?
Oh my
but here
God.
we are. Cheers.
So you guys are the hosts and the creators of the Double Teamed podcast. And background story of how I met you. I was on a podcast, shout out to Bradley, and he was like, hey, are you interested in being a guest or having guests on, like on a podcast? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm open. And he's like, you need to meet these girls. Like instantly. It was like, they are, into like open relationships and all these like I don't even know what to call it. Like, what are the terms?
So
very sexually open.
I always say the podcast, it's kind of like about our sexual journeys and what we learn along the way, but kink, sexuality in general, and then non-monogamy, because those are the things that we're like both into.
Right.
So that's how I would define
I
it.
manifested this because I've said it on the show before, and I've just said it for years. I'm like, I need somebody who's in a relationship, in an open relationship, married or not, and because this is so interesting. And I also have like my curiosities about it too.
Sure.
Like I've only been in like monogamous relationships besides the ones that I've cheated.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. But I'm like, I'm so curious because there's a stigma with it, but there's so many actually like pros to the idea of monogamy. So background story, Cami, you're actually, so are you like in an open relationship?
I am not.
You're not.
I have a partner, and he is my dom.
Yes.
Prior to that, I was engaged, and we just didn't make it down the aisle. But I am a non-monogamy ally, and I love the community. But yeah, so I'm kinky For now.
I'm kinky.
Just kinky.
Yes, but Nikki, you're married. You're a fucking pilot.
I am, yes.
Which is a fun fact about you. And
Thank you.
you're in an open marriage.
Yeah, so my husband and I, we've been together 9 years total, married almost 7, and then we've been open about 4 of those. We did take a little bit of a COVID break. It seems like everyone in the community did. But basically kind of how we got started, we're both pilots, so we both travel quite a bit. And at one point we were just kind of like, you know, when we're out and about, we want to have the freedom to like do something without it destroying our relationship. Like we were both super young. When we got started, I think I was like 24, 25. He's about 5 years older than me, so he was not even 30 yet. So we were both kind of like, we're cool with this. Like, it's not going to affect our marriage if we do this. And then from there, it kind of like progressed. We took it very, very slow in the beginning. And then kind of when we opened back up after COVID, we were a little bit more intentional about it. Like, we got on the dating apps.
Right.
We started venturing more into polyamory.
So what do you put on the dating apps? Like, did you put you and your husband, like...
No, so
okay.
we did. Now, some people do that, and that's
Right.
totally fine.
Right.
I've hooked up with plenty of couples that have like joint profiles, and you know they're very open about that. But we actually had separate profiles because we preferred more of like dating and hooking up separately. Though we did have our fair share of like sex parties and foursomes and threesomes, but we liked doing stuff separately more than we liked doing stuff together. So we kind of did a little bit of both.
So you like doing stuff separately than doing it together?
Yeah. So
How so? Like,
I don't know. I mean, like I said, the
Yeah.
foursomes that we had were super fun. We had some really fun threesomes too. Like, loved all the sex parties. Those we always did together. But in terms of like whenever we were apart, obviously we would just do stuff separately. So that's kind of what we were used to. But it was
Right.
mainly when we were apart. So, for example, for his work schedule, he's like gone 2 weeks, home 2 weeks.
right.
So when he was gone, we would like both go have our fun, and he travels all around the world for his job. So he had the freedom to like go explore there, and then I would explore here in LA, and then when he was home, we would just kind of spend our time together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, that's so interesting. So how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
28.
Oh, 28. And you got married 9 years ago?
Oh, we got married 7 years ago, so I was 21. We've been together since I was 18, just turning 19.
Wow. So do you think that that's what played a part on like having this like open relationship? Because
I'm gonna
like
say
you guys. Cammy's like, yes.
I do
Completely.
think so in a sense that like I think we both wanted to explore more sexually. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I had my hoe phase before him.
Right.
And it was a very active, beautiful, explorative time for me.
But you can't help when you fall in love with someone. You know what I mean? It's
and that's
just-
exactly how it was. Like, whenever I met him and I fell in love with him, like, I knew as soon as I met him, I was like, this is going to be someone that's going to be very significant in my life. And I told him within a month of dating, I'm like, we're going to get married one day. And he didn't run. He didn't run.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. But I just remember thinking back during that time, like, I was like, I need to kind of clean up my act a little bit and put all this, hoeing to the side while I become this like more mature, womanly kind of figure. And then
Right.
I did that. We were monogamous for 4 years of our relationship. And then we both kind of got to the point where we were like, yeah, we kind of want to explore again. Like, we feel safe in this. Like, let's
How
do
was
it.
that conversation? Because I feel like that's kind of a scary thing to like bring up to your significant other, where you're like, I love you, but I want this dick over here.
Oh my God. So it's funny that you say that, because that's exactly how it happened.
Oh my God.
But
Cammy's like, yes.
That's how the convo went. I mean, I've heard this story. I'll let you
so
tell.
we actually we did an episode on this because it is a very intimidating conversation to have. Now, I will say, before we had that conversation, there were like breadcrumbs along the way where we were both like kind of hinting that we would be like, okay.
Was sex just getting boring, or was it just kind of like...
No, I mean, I would say
No.
in a long-term relationship, sex ebbs and flows. Like, we've had some of like, I always call it my hall of fame,
Yeah.
the dicks that I fucked, or pussies, I am bi.
Yeah.
But I will say that like we have had some of the best sex and some of the worst sex together. And so it really just kind of ebbs and
Yeah.
flows. But we got to a point where we had been kind of hinting along the way. And then one day I was here in LA, he was back where we were living at the time. And he was like, I love you, but I just kind of want to be able to, have some freedom when I go out, if that's if something
fair.
happens. Yeah, and I was like,
I support that 100%.
Yeah,
I get that, especially what he does where he's traveling all the time.
yeah, and we're both traveling at that point, and I was like, you know what, me too. I was like, thank God he brought it up, because I was feeling the same thing. I just didn't know how to say it, but he eventually did. So that's kind of how that went.
That's amazing. And I mean, for you, Cami, how come you're like, what do you feel about like ever being like a relationship like that?
Well,
Because you're an ally, but you're not like in an open relationship.
I'd have to say I feel like I'm very lucky because Nikki and I just have like the closest friendship / like, partnership. And
By the way, they're twins. And I didn't preface that. Like, they're fucking twins, and I'm fangirling because I've always wanted to be a twin.
It's the best thing ever. It's like the biggest blessing.
I wish.
No, it is.
I want to be Mary Kate and Ashley so fucking bad.
Well, and it really is, like she said, a blessing because she is my life partner. And thankfully, like, I've gotten to watch them grow in their relationship, from the time that they started dating until now. And so I didn't find out about the non-monogamy until actually about, what,
2 years in.
2 years ago? Yeah. And when I did, maybe
She's
I am drunk. I keep dropping this water bottle. Fix my hair. Okay, just a little bit. Okay.
See, that's what sisters are for. I didn't grow up with sisters.
Oh,
I mean, I have a sister. I have a sister now who's like a half sister from like my dad's second marriage, but we're like such a huge age gap. Love her, love you, shout out Ariana. But like, growing up, it was like me and my brothers, and I was always just like, I want a sister.
We have brothers too. We've got 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh wait, no, 1 sister. Well, 2 if we count each other.
Right.
One other sister besides us. Yeah.
But anyway, so I think for me it's been fun to watch. Like watching them make their Tinder profiles together was really fun.
Oh my god, that's so cute. That's really romantic, actually, in a weird way.
I did my husband's Tinder
One of my
profile.
if I would do that too, because men have no like.
I know. I was like, let me do this, and he was like, okay.
One of my favorite moments was we were pulling up to my apartment. Her husband was about to go on a date, and Nikki was about to come record in my apartment with me. And he's going on a date with this girl, and I guess, how her husband, he put E&M on his profile, but not a lot. Sometimes people like glaze over that.
He put what on his profile?
E&M.
Oh, like so it's an acronym you can use like on your profile to say that you're ethically non-monogamous.
Oh, see, as someone who is not in.
Yes. So some people don't catch that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think he was going on a date, and of course he didn't want to be like. Nikki was like, if you get drunk, I'll come pick you up. I'm your sister. And it was just one of the funniest moments because, of course, you don't want to be like, my wife is picking me up if I'm drunk.
Right.
But it's fun to watch them just, navigate this journey. I feel like that's been a learning, position. Experience. Wait, I'm not remembering words. But it's been a learning experience for me, and I know if I ever get into a relationship where I feel like my partner and I are ready for non-monogamy, I feel like I would have like the handbook on how to get the conversation started.
Yeah, because you already have a sister who's
exactly, and I would have a reference point. Yeah, right. So, that's where I'm at right now. So,
and I will say this, because like I've told Cami this multiple times too, is that non-monogamy doesn't have to be for everyone. But like what I always kind of champion for is just like figure out what it is that works best for you. Because right now society tells us like society tells us the only thing that works is monogamy.
Which I disagree.
Yeah, thank you. And it's the only option, and it's the only thing that's like socially acceptable, and everything. Think about it, like our tax system, our laws, everything is set up for the nuclear family, right?
Right.
So I always tell people,
wow,
I'm like,
that's brilliant.
No, it's true.
It's so true. Yeah.
And I always tell people that, if you choose monogamy, that's fine, but like choose it for yourself, because like that's what you find most fulfilling. That's how you want to put your energy into a relationship. Like that's what makes you happiest. And if you want to choose non-monogamy for those same reasons, like that's fine. Like just figure out whatever it is that works for you, and define it for yourself how you want to approach it, and go out there and find it, and just like, you know, break past the mold of what society says a relationship's supposed to look like.
And I feel like, you know, the biggest thing that people say about, like, you know, non-monogamous relationships, or just, you know, the idea of seeing your partner with somebody else, is like, people are like, hell no, they have like these trust issues, you know? So like, what are your guys' like trust, I don't want to say issues because obviously it's not an issue, but like, what, like, how did you...
I will preface this with, I started reading reverse harem fiction about 4 years ago, which is ironically the same time Nikki opened up her marriage. But reverse harem fiction was also a great way for me to learn, like, you know, how to view things, how to view relationships differently. So, well, now we can go into the trust thing.
So, I mean, there are people that start non-monogamous relationships like right off the bat. Like, granted, we were monogamous before we opened up, and that within itself has a bunch of challenges. So, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can either start non-monogamously off the bat, or go from monogamy to non-monogamy. I think for us, I mean, we were just so young at the time, we didn't really know that it was an option until we were both kind of like, we want to do this, like, why don't we try it? And honestly, back then, I had no idea about all the resources that were available about non-monogamy.
It wasn't really a conversation until, like, kind of recently.
Oh, I agree.
Like,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we just kind of did it like trial and error for a couple of years before finally, like, I got on Reddit and I was like, oh, like, there's a bunch of shit on, you know, non-monogamy, and that I had no idea existed. So that was really cool. But I think in terms of, like, it's good to build, like, a foundation and have that trust with someone before you open a monogamous relationship. But understand that, like, you also have to, like, become your own autonomous people before you open a relationship. Like, it takes a lot of work. This is not for the faint of heart. I always say that to people. I'm like, if you have jealousy issues, if you have insecurities, if you have codependency, if you have insecurities, like, take the time to work on all of that before you ever think about entering non-monogamy. Because, like, I mean, we're talking about, like, this is like the pro leagues getting into non-monogamy. Like, it really is. Just
it's a lot, because it's a lot of self-work.
It is.
To, like, put yourself in that position. Because I believe that is successful. It could, you know, works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And it does take, I agree, it does take a lot of, like, self-work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, not have trust issues, not get jealous, not get, you know.
Well, and the thing is, those things still happen when you're in non-monogamy.
Yeah, they do.
But
so, like, jealousy still happens. Yeah. And, like, it's not as if, like, all the emotions, I mean, think about it, like, in a relationship, no matter how much self-work you do in a relationship, like, you're still going to have feelings. Like, you're still human, you know? So even though we put all this work into, like, fixing ourselves from within, like, we still have things that come up just because, you know, we're just naturally going to have that happen. But like, I remember I saw this TikTok the other day where they were talking about non-monogamy, and the guy was like, I've been to therapy, you know, enough to know that, like, my ego can't handle it. And I'm like, the fact that you can identify that is phenomenal. Because that just shows you're like, okay, I understand, like, my ego can't take this, so it's not something that I want to be successful in because of that. So I'm going to stick to monogamy because I think it'll be, you know, something I'm going to be better at, and that's fine. But I would say, like, for the both of us, we, as you know, we're both pilots, so we travel a lot. I had to do a lot of work into detaching from him because, like, I don't know exactly what attachment style I have. I need to read the book on attachment styles. But I was just so, like, I think it was the anxious attachment style. Like, when he was gone, I had so much anxiety. Like, that really affected my mental health sometimes. So I got to a point to myself where I was like, I need to work on this. Otherwise, it's going to consume me. So, like, in doing that work to kind of, like, detach in a way that, like, I let go of that anxiety and I let go of all those fears is what kind of helped me in accepting non-monogamy. I'll have to ask him, to be honest, what some of his inner work was. But I know on his side as well, he's always been, you know, kind of a really secure person. And, you know, someone, I think whenever I gave him kind of that safe space to learn how to communicate and kind of express himself more, he felt more comfortable in non-monogamy, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. I mean, I think my biggest concern is, like, what if my partner falls in love with someone else?
And that can happen. And I've talked about it on the episode before. This is what I said in an episode once, and I always stand by this. you know, we are all humans and we have a choice. Like marriage is a choice. Relationships are a choice. Everything we have is a choice. Commitment is a choice. You choose that person every day, and that is commitment. And sometimes those choices change because you grow, you evolve. Like humans are not, you know, static. We want to be dynamic in that sense. So I stand by this. If he ever chooses someone else, that is his choice, you know?
Right.
And I as long as he's happy and he's choosing what he feels is best for him, like I support that.
That is maturity, because that's a thing.
It's gonna hurt. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's not as if like you're gonna be. It's not as if like someday they're gonna be like, hey, I choose this person. Like, peace out. We're gonna go have this future together, and you're gonna be like, cool, great, love it.
Right.
Of course, you're gonna cry your eyes out and like, you know, have all these emotions about it. But when you break it down to understanding that like they are doing something as an autonomous human being for themselves, that's when you're like, I understand.
That's mature as fuck.
Yeah, you're pursuing your happiness.
You mature as fuck.
And that's what it takes if you want to be non-monogamous. Like, and I mean, there's so many layers to non-monogamy. So like, and I think some layers take more work than others.
Right.
So for example, like you have couples, we explained it like as a cake on our podcast because I love cake.
I love cake.
So who doesn't love cake?
Yeah.
So I said
a good chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like
Anything
a birthday
chocolate.
cake. Yeah. Anything. Oh,
Oh my God, Sweet Lady Jane's. Have you had their cake?
No.
you need to try their cakes.
Try their cake.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's, and I set it up as like a wedding cake, ironically enough, because, you know, I like irony.
Yeah.
But basically, so like first layer, you have the people that are like in like threesomes, swinging, but like soft swap, like they're getting their feet wet into some form of non-monogamy. And this is like the reason I said a wedding cake is because like this is the biggest layer. So this is like where you find a lot of people venturing into it.
Right.
I see a lot of couples on Tinder and Bumble like looking for, you know, that threesome experience, or, you know, when they go
I want a threesome so bad.
I've had so many. They're fun. They're really fun. Like I love them. Yeah, I've had male, female. I've had you know, female, male. Like I've had such a variety, and 2 dicks at once.
I feel like we need to do like a part 2, because I feel like there's still so much stuff. Or actually listen to their podcast and you'll learn more. How about that? Yeah.
We'll do the second episode on ours.
Yeah. I'll come on your guys' and then we'll chat. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically in this layer, like you have the people that are kind of like dipping their toes. Because I said this in an episode, like if you're, you know, having threesomes, like people are like, okay, that's super fun. That's cool. Like they're not like super.
It's a little bit more socially acceptable.
Exactly. Yeah. And once you get into the second layer, which is like full swap, open relationships where you're doing stuff more separately, then that's where it starts to get a little bit more of like that taboo layer, less people venturing into that, and you know, it's a little bit more like curated in the sense that
How about like swingers? Was that kind of
yeah,
like
swingers would be kind of in the now swingers, because there's the term soft swap and full swap. So like soft swap meaning like just the females play, full swap meaning like the couples like fully swap.
Right.
So everyone's penetrating.
Everyone gets something. There's no one's
banging.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right.
so there's a difference there, because like I've been to sex parties before where like some couples go and like they'll like play with girls, but or you know like maybe the guys bi and like they'll just play with guys, but they don't really like fully swap with other couples. But you know, you do have swingers that fully swap. So that's kind of more of that second layer. And then I described it as third layer being like polyamory, which is where like instead of just sexual connections, you're pursuing more emotional connections with people. And it's and within polyamory, there's a whole.
So what do you kind of
subset.
identify like yourself as? Like, you've done the first cake, which is the threesomes, and then the next layer.
We've kind of been through them all, to be honest.
So even you've had like emotional relationships as well too.
Yeah. So my husband has a girlfriend currently. I've dated some men and have had more emotional connections, but
that's mature as fuck.
not as successfully. Dating in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
but have had boyfriends, I guess, or like people that I've dated had more than just like a sexual connection with. But I will say, like, you know, all these layers, all of it takes a lot of work to do, you know, to get to that point where you're okay with all of this. But the jump from like non-monogamy or like open relationships to polyamory is huge.
Yeah.
Takes so much more work to be able to handle the emotional side of it. Yeah.
I don't think, because So I'm open to like my boyfriend having sex with other people. In fact, I've even said on the show, like, I want to see him have sex with someone else.
Oh, you're into
like
voyeurism. Okay.
Yes, like we've only dated for like a year, so I feel like right now is not really the time. We're just kind of like in dating each other and just like building the foundation in our relationship. But we both agree that at one point in our relationship, whenever it's the right time, to explore that. And like I just have this, even when I'm having sex with him, I'm just like, I think about another girl writing him and I get like so turned on. I'm like, I don't know what it is. It's like
I'm with you.
It's like another thick Latina on him or something. Like I just like fantasize about it. I'm like, this is hot, you know. So, but I mean, I don't think that I'm like we're there yet on an emotional part.
No, and that takes a long time.
Yes. Yeah. So, and like we've talked about it. We're like we're just working on our foundation, our relationship. It's only been a year. So we just want to like really get that solid. But I do feel like I trust him in a sense of like it's okay for him to like have sex with someone else when we get to that point. But, you know, there is, I guess, that feeling of like, I don't want you to have feelings for someone else.
And I mean,
I don't want you to have another girlfriend. Like, I want to be the only girlfriend, wife, whatever.
Yeah. That's
Everyone
fair.
else is just a sexual part. Like, I feel like, I mean, I respect the poly aspect of it, but I know me, and because like I'm like very emotional, that you sharing like the emotional, you know, attention to somebody else would just, I just know I'm not strong enough for that.
No, and I get that, and
Yeah.
that's totally fine. And honestly,
I
like,
wish I was, because that's dope, but like,
no, it takes
I'm
like I
the
said,
same way with my
Yeah.
partner right now. I'm the same way. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Lot of work. Like you really have to like because when you do stuff as like
never say never. I might eventually in the future. Who knows?
yeah,
But,
we never know. But
Yeah.
like when you open up like sexually, because like to me, sex is sex. Like you know, it's just something we do. Like it's the most like primal thing you could possibly do with someone.
Yeah.
So I understand that like emotional vulnerability with someone else, like that's huge. So if you guys are taking it slow in that sense, that's totally fine. I mean, we technically, you know, we're only like open, you know, sexually for 3 years before we were actually like venturing into polyamory. So like that's how long of the trajectory it was for us, because it takes a lot of work. And even then, like, you know, in the I think about 7-8 months that we've been doing polyamory by now, there have been times where we're like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
Right.
I don't. This is interesting.
Like, this is crazy. This
Yeah.
is like wild, but it's dope. Yeah.
If anything, like it's helped me. I always say non-monogamy is a pressure cooker for self-growth, because you really got to take the time to look inward and be like,
Yeah.
you got to look at yourself and be like, okay.
It's a lot of healing to get to that point, and that's kind of powerful and kind of dope. Like to way to like to kind of like change that view and to look at it in a more like healing kind of way, where you're like, let me get to this point where I have full trust.
Yeah.
And sex is just sex,
Yeah.
and I could have that kind of adventurous lifestyle. Like that's really dope. Like I never really looked at it like that.
You have to really compartmentalize,
Right.
which takes a lot of work. But
Yeah, I have a lot of work to do.
and that's okay. But like
Yeah.
what I love about polyamory is that like, or at least that's where I've seen the most growth in myself in really defining what I want out of relationships. For example, like, you know, we've definitely realized in our poly journey, like he wants more of a family. He wants to have children and have kind of more of a family aspect. And I'm very career driven. And while I support him having like a family, I would just play kind of a supportive role in that, like not the main
Would you
role.
let him have family with someone else? Oh, girl, that's. I mean, I respect that, because that's a lot of wow. Yeah.
It, like I said,
That's dope. Like to get to that point of just like acceptance, like that's like powerful. Like I'm like, it's not even like throwing shade. It's like literally like I'm jealous. Like that's like a certain type of like, that's a certain type of level of acceptance within like yourself, and then with your partner and life in general. Like that's dope.
I definitely say like I've built a lot of self-love for myself, but like I also
Yeah.
just like in seeing that, like I recognize like I do not want my own biological children, but if he wants that, like if that's what's going to make him happy as his own autonomous being, I support that because I love him unconditionally. And that's one thing you really have to like find the true meaning of unconditional love if you're going to enter.
It's got to be unconditional.
Polyamory.
Yeah.
Unconditional if you're going to enter polyamory. So, I mean, it's all been like a great growth journey, and, you know, like we're not perfect at it. You know, it's a relationship structure that you practice, and by no means is anyone ever perfect at non-monogamy or polyamory. Like, we all fuck up along the way, just like we do in monogamous relationships.
Right.
You know, I know we've talked about it with guests before too, like, you're kind of expected to be perfect because you want to prove to the world that this can work, but at the same time, like, you have to realize moments, that, like, things happen, and, you know, like I said, we're dynamic, we change.
It's trial and error too, so I'm sure, like, something works. Yeah. So.
That's especially when it comes to boundaries. Like, it's very much trial and error, because, like, we used to have some boundaries that, like, now, like, don't even faze us, or, you know, or others where, like, we put them in place, and then, like, in practice we were like, that didn't really work, like, at all. So it is a lot of trial and error.
It's amazing. Well, Cami, let's get to you.
Oh, I'm here.
Don't worry, girl. I have questions for you too, because you mentioned earlier, like, you have a Dom. So let's get into that. What is a Dom? How did you meet this person? What is this dynamic? You know.
So, you know, funny enough, I met him on Hinge, and but it was the way he and I came about to our Dom sub journey was actually very unintentional. And looking back, we communicated pretty well at the beginning, but I feel like we should have done more communication. But it definitely has been a journey in, you know, being in my subspace. So I like to be a little. And so
And define that for people, because I know what it is, but define it for people.
Yes. So being a little, basically, you have a daddy or a mommy Dom, in which they kind of play with your, like, inner child dynamic. So it's not, and I know a lot of people look at it and they're thinking, like, oh, so you like being babied. That's not the only thing. I think it can go, you know, a lot more into, like, just not even just, like, healing your inner child, but also just, like, building this sense of trust and building this sense of, like, I don't know, it's like a safe space for me in which I get to be, like, I don't want to say, like, you know, like a little girl again, but, you know, I have a caretaker that I can fully trust. So with my Dom, I would say I love the way he commands me. That's how it started.
How would he command you?
Yeah, well, and that's what I want to say. Looking back, I think we started more as, like, just like your general basic, like, Dom sub, not so much like, you know, little girl / daddy. And then, but we kind of, you know, went into that space. But I mean, with the commands, it's, you got to be really explicit here. But
we're very explicit here. They've seen a lot.
Yeah, but basically it's, you know,
whatever you're comfortable with, of course.
No, of course. You know, it's like, you know, get on your knees and suck daddy's cock. But yeah,
she got so, like, shy. She's like, it's suck daddy's cock.
Right? No, but that's what it is. And I, you know, but I love who I am as a sub, because I feel like in that subspace, I've been able to, I don't want to say I'm, like, a whole different person, but there's just this, like, nurturing, gentle, like, pleasing side of me.
Are you a people pleaser?
Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, in real life, I want to say, like, I'm a little...
You can be, I would say, sometimes.
Sometimes. That's the thing. It depends on the person, the people, the situation.
Depends on how much you give a fuck.
Because, you know, sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I can be a little bit selfish. And one thing that I always, like, champion is in being your own, you know, in your own person, being autonomous, is there is a certain level of selfishness that you have to have in order to grow as a person.
Right.
So what I like about when I'm being in my subspace is that I will do anything to please my daddy. And I love that side of me, because I feel like it, you know, that's a way for me to give, and to truly, like, be vulnerable. So in my sub journey, and it's really funny because, like, my Dom and I we broke up. Like, 2 months ago.
Was it like also like an emotional relationship, or was it
Yes.
just purely okay? So he was like your boyfriend.
Yeah, see, it's so complex. There's just so many layers there. So we started out as dom sub, and then we got into more little girl / daddy, and then we were like, hey, we also like each other. Let's like start dating, right? And once you start dating, you really have to work on the communication. But I mean, also like being dom sub takes also a lot of communication, because you have to be able to tell this person like, okay, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with,
right?
Establishing safe words, establishing boundaries, establishing so we were doing that as we were also exploring a relationship, which kind of ended up being a little chaotic in some sort of ways, but me, I love chaos and I like to do everything all at once.
What's your guys' sign?
Libras.
Okay.
But we're Aries rising, so that
Yeah.
might explain a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm Aries rising too, like we talked about.
Yeah. So Aries rising like the chaos.
Yeah.
No, I will say
I do like my life is chaos.
Yeah. Well,
we
but
thrive in the chaos.
once
Yeah.
we broke up, and I will say to backtrack a little bit, I started this relationship about a month and a half after I ended my engagement. So there was some healing I still had to do on my own, and I actually ended up putting a lot of attachment onto him on the relationship side, and so once we broke up, I was actually able to start letting go of that attachment, and then we basically got back together. So now we're still dom sub, but we're also very much exploring our friendship and our ability to be a couple like without the titles.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say situationship, because I do feel like he and I have like a good level of caring.
A situationship is more so like when you don't know what's happening and it's just like a situation. But
Yeah.
if it's
You don't need a
established,
title, yeah.
right? But if it's established and it's like, even if it's monogamous or not, or
Well, and
it's a sexual thing, it's like then it's fine. But a situationship is like, I think this is it, but I'm not quite sure. It's a situation.
Well, and that's a thing. One thing that I will say is after I ended my engagement and my ex and I have had this like roller coaster of like, we ended our engagement, we became really good friends, we had a few other fights, now we're okay with each other. But once I ended my engagement with him, I really realized that the titles mean absolute shit.
Same in marriage.
Yes.
Titles mean shit. That piece of paper, nothing.
No, but
That's true.
Yeah, no, I agree with the marriage part of aspect of the title.
Like what commitment is not defined by a piece of paper
Yes.
or a title. Commitment is defined. Like I recently came to this like come to Jesus moment where I was like, what is commitment to me? And I realized commitment is basically you are committed to conflict resolution and growth and nurture in a relationship. That is commitment.
Yeah.
Meaning when a problem arises, you're both going to work on it to, resolve it. And you're both committed to making sure the relationship grows and, is nurtured and is in a place where you both feel fulfilled by it.
And
Not a piece of paper.
So for me, I
agree.
After I got, done with my engagement, I had a little bit of a hoe phase. Hoe phase 2.0.
They're important. Hoe phases needed, and there's different phases too. I've had probably like 4 different hoe phases.
So I had a
Eighth
huge
grade
one.
was my first one. I made out with everyone at school.
I had a
That was the
huge one
beginning,
in
my
college.
first sexual awakening.
Yes. See, no, it's gotta happen.
Yes.
I always say
Everyone needs a hoe phase.
you have to have at least one. And I had my hoe phase in college, and then I had my another hoe phase 2.0 is what I call it, after my engagement. And after that, I realized I do not need the titles. So I am happy, and I was telling my partner this the other day, is, I am happy where we are at, where we both commit time to each other. We both commit to each other as dom sub. We, we spend time together. We do the, nightly phone calls, the morning phone calls.
Love it. Cute.
Yep, right. So cute. Yeah, and we spend time together and we prioritize our time together, but we don't have the titles.
I mean, I think titles are important, but I don't mean in a sense where like you need boyfriend, girlfriend title. I think title in a sense of like you know where the situation is at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
Clarification. Yeah.
Clarification, whether it's like, this is just sub dom, whatever, you know, this is an open relationship. This
Gotta say
is
dom first.
dom sub.
Sorry.
That's the etiquette.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's a good. Thank you. Noted.
Daddy comes first.
So, I mean, I just think that, like, you know, I always say, like, labels, titles do matter, but I think in a sense of, like, you know, like, it doesn't have to be girlfriend, boyfriend, married, whatever, but just having that kind of label on it, open relationship or dom sub relationship, you know, like an understanding, I think, of where it is and knowing that, like, you're getting what you want out of it.
I agree.
I don't know. I years ago went on a date with a daddy dom.
Oh, let's hear it.
So this was like, if y'all want to look in the archives, this was probably like 2017, 2018. I did an episode. I actually invited him on. We like talked about our date, and then had sex afterwards. But
Love that.
it was not even good.
Oh, what? Sorry to hear that.
Yes. So all that, yeah. So, you know, we matched on Tinder and I was like, oh my God, he's so cute. And then I like showed my coworkers like, hey, I have a date with this guy. He's so cute. And she's like, it says daddy dom on here. And I was like, I didn't know what it was. My fucking innocent. I'm actually from Valencia, in a very like suburbia, like conservative town. So these type of like conversations weren't happening. It was so taboo. So I was like, what is a daddy dom? And so, you know, we looked into it and I was like, oh shit, I'm so down.
I love that.
I'm curious. Yeah. Like, I'll never like, you know, like I will never judge. I will always be open to anything to see, you know, what it's all about.
Love that.
And, you know, it wasn't something that was like, you know, I knew what it was, but I was like, I'm curious to see what this is. I'm interested. So, you know, we were texting, we were planning our date, and he was like, oh, like, please wear a skirt, you know?
Oh.
And I'm stubborn. I don't really like being told what to do. I don't know if it's an Aquarius thing or if it's just me.
A bratty sub.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to know, I hope he asked for consent to give you these directions.
Yeah, he should have.
No.
As a dom, he should have asked for consent to give you those directions.
No, he didn't.
Then he's a bad dom.
Awful.
Or I shouldn't say bad dom. He maybe needs to work on his dom ship. You know?
Right. That's true, because I think it is important. Obviously, it's important to have consent to be able to give direction. Like, we didn't even meet each other yet. There's no established.
There's a lot
anything.
of etiquette in dom sub.
Right.
There's a lot of
There
etiquette.
is a lot of etiquette, and and the good thing is, and I'm really happy for this, is, you know, with my dom and I, we started the etiquette after our first meeting, so. You know, because you kind of, and you have to have that communication in it, but you can't, like, as a dom or as a sub, like, you can't give that trust away to a person without even meeting them.
Right.
Like, you start the
That's
conversation
true.
Well,
early.
you can have doms and subs that are like over the internet. Like, that's totally fine.
That is true.
But you need to at some point, like, you need to establish consent with everything and like understand where, like, both non-monogamy and
Now I'm
kink
pissed.
require so much communication.
He sucked. That's probably why he didn't know what he was doing.
Everyone's it's a work in progress to learn how to be a dom or a
Maybe
sub.
he's better now.
Yeah, and I do retract my statement a little bit, because you actually can't have a lot of dom sub relationships that are strictly like long distance or online. And that's fine. I do think though, you know, when you start the conversation, you know, at least have some face-to-face time, like on FaceTime.
Yeah, we didn't. We were just texting a few texts back and forth, and then he just told me that he requested for me to wear a skirt. And so I was
he
like,
requested. Okay, that is nice.
Yeah. But how did he word it? Because it should have been
I
something
can't
like.
remember. This was like years ago, but he was like, "Oh, like wear a skirt for me," or something.
Okay,
like
it should have
that.
been something along the lines of, "May I request that you wear a
Oh
skirt?"
no, yeah, he didn't have that.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like, "Wear a skirt for me," and I'm stubborn. You can't tell me what to do, so I showed up in pants.
To be a bratty sub.
To be a bratty sub.
You would get some flogging.
Because I wasn't sure if I was into it yet. You know, this is so new to me, and I don't want to like cave in just yet. Like, I want to show him, like, you can't just convince me. Like, I mean, you can't just like expect me to like give it all to you. Like,
No, you
you're
can't.
still gonna have to work for
Absolutely
it.
you
You're still gonna have to you have to work me through it. You can't just be like, wear a skirt, and I'm like, okay, you know. So, and you're a stranger, you know.
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
don't know who you are. So I still wanted to be safe. So
I mean, I have doms too. I have 2 doms.
Ooh.
And there are a couple, so it's a male and a female dom. So, and something I did want to clarify, because Cami said she's a little. So there are multiple layers to like dom sub. So you can be the little, or so like daddy little or like mommy little. Like that's one version of dom sub. For me, my doms are more master mistress.
Yes.
And I'm a good girl. So it's less of a dynamic.
What's a good girl versus a little girl?
So that kind of dynamic plays a little bit more into like the inner child, as Cami said, or a little bit
in the caretaking.
in the caretaking. Yeah. So like where the daddy dom or the mommy dom will do more of kind of like the caretaking for the sub, in the sense that like, do things that kind of are more caring and nurturing, in the way that you would like be like with a child, rather than
So for example, give us like a scenario.
so like master mistress, so I call my doms sir and mistress. So basically, like, they give me orders and commands and instructions, and I take those. But there's kind of like less of that care. They're great at aftercare, but less of that like caregiving aspect, and it's more of kind of like I submit to them in a sense of like I play the good girl. Like, yeah, it is really hard to explain. Now I think about it, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But because there are very many different layers, because even within like master mistress, you can have a pet. You can
Which
have,
I'm not.
You can
A
have,
pet?
Yeah. You can have a slave.
Which I'm not. I'm more of a good girl. So
or servant. Which I think good girl would kind of.
I'm becoming more of a service sub, but I haven't fully explored that yet.
Yeah. There's many different
But
types.
and then you play into different kinks. So you play into like objectification, humiliation, degradation, praise. Like I have degradation and praise kinks. So like they degrade me while they, do and say things to me.
I love degradation.
Yeah. And
What
then
is
there's
that?
after.
I'm like all these terms. I'm like,
So have you ever liked to hear something like "you're such a dirty little whore"?
yes.
Okay,
so you
so
have
similar
a
to degradation.
Okay.
Humiliation would be like a humiliation kink would be something along the lines of less of like degrading you as a human and more like humiliating you, like like picking.
Is that like from Euphoria? Have you guys seen Euphoria?
I have seen Euphoria.
And that
yeah.
girl who was doing like that online kind of porn thing, and she was like telling him that he was like disgusting, and he like loved it.
That would be more like humiliation. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, think about like when you degrade someone, you're like kind of like breaking them down, like as a like in their. Like who they are as a person, whereas
I need to feel like a sexy bitch. I don't want to feel
so you'd have more of a praise kink or a worship kink.
better worship the fuck out of me. Tell me I'm a
kinks are fun.
sexy ass bitch. My ass is fat. You love my tits. I
Okay,
need all
so
of
you
that.
might be more of the dom here. You
I'm
might
getting-
want
I'm
to.
getting a little bit of dom energy.
I feel like I'm pretty versed because
So you might be a switch. I'm a switch.
I feel like I could be switched because, even when my boyfriend and I have sex, like, there'll be times where I love control, and there'll be times where I'm like, literally do anything. Like, wake me up in the middle of the night. And just,
Okay, so you'd
I
be a
wanna wake up.
switch. Yeah.
I
I
would
could
say you're
switch it
more
up.
of a switch.
So like, have you ever choked him? That was the introduction to
No.
my switch journey.
No,
I love
but
choking.
I love
men.
when he's choking me.
Okay, so I like choking men, and the first time I ever choked a guy, that's when I was
Can
like,
I choke you, babe? Sorry.
That's- yeah.
I'm like speaking to him. Can I choke
Can I choke you? May she choke you?
May I choke you? I don't think he'd be into that. I think he likes. I don't know. I
I've
have more of a
flogged dudes before. Like
okay?
so like a flogger is a
This cute little
sex toy. It's like like a stick. It can be rubber. It can be glass. It can be leather. And then it has kind of like these leather
I've seen
strands.
those. Yeah.
And
But
so
just for
you
the
like
listeners.
you whip it. So I love a flogger personally.
I love being
Hit.
yes.
tied up.
Me too.
Yes.
I love being hit.
Like the harder the better.
The more bruises and marks it leaves, the better.
Yes. Like I want him to beat the shit out of me. Like,
Me too.
Yes, that's what we say.
And I have a really hard time finding men that are like,
sorry,
okay.
David, our audio guy. He's probably like, Steph, I didn't know this part of you.
But it's really hard actually finding men that are like willing to like open hand slap you
Right.
I
across the
love
face.
being slapped
I
across
don't want
the
to be
face.
slapped across the face.
Have you tried it
but
before?
everything else. You're right. I mean, let me try it before I say I don't like it. Let me try it before I like.
No, I'm
you know.
serious because like there's something about like when you're getting like fucked by a dude and he just like smacks you across the face. It's one of the hottest things in my
Yeah.
opinion. I love impact play. Impact play is probably my favorite.
You know what? I might be into it. Let me try it next time.
I mean, I always say like try things at least once. See how
Yeah.
you like it. And
We can
then-
circle back.
Yeah, we
We'll
can circle
We'll
back.
do a part 2 on your show. I'll be like, I got slapped.
Well, it's so funny because I love being tied with a belt or with a tie. Those are my favorite types
I like being
of ties.
blindfolded.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Like I like just like not having distractions and just like feeling everything.
But yes. Well, see, and that's the one thing I love about subspace is that sometimes you just, especially when you're just so deep into subspace, it's almost like you're in like this whole new realm where the only thing that matters is like what's happening
Pleasing
right
your
then.
doms, yeah.
Yes. But
I feel like you do have little girl vibes. Now that I'm getting to know you, there is like
Yeah, she has it. I don't.
There's
I'm
like
not
this,
a little.
There's like this sweetness that like comes from you that's like so sweet that I could see that being like portrayed like in your sex life.
Thank
and then
you,
you definitely have Nikki. You definitely have like the more like rah. I feel like there's always like in every set of twins, there's always like the Ashley and then the Mary Kate. You know what I mean?
I don't know about Mary Kate and Ashley's dynamic, even though I really admire them as twins because they have a partnership.
Yeah.
But I will say, out of the two of us, I've always been the more
dominant
alpha one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing, you know. Cami does a great job as Omega.
But that's how you have a balance.
She really does.
That's so funny.
Thank you.
But that's, opposites attract. If there was two alphas and then two like the same thing, it would clash. So one has to be something, the other has to be something in order
But
to
I
have
mean,
a
that's
dynamic.
not to say that Cami can't stand up for herself. Like,
for
you know,
sure.
without
I believe
me, like
that.
she's still a bad bitch. You
Right.
know? Like,
Thank you.
I'm not her backbone by any means. Like, she can stand up for herself.
Yeah, both of y'all are bad bitches.
But I
Thank
do
you.
feel like sometimes my nurturing side from being a little, I do help Nikki sometimes in being more.
Cami's a lot more nurturing than I am. If you like, if you're friends with both of us and like you need a friend, go to Cami. If you need like a therapist or like someone to give you tough love, come to me. Like I'm all yours.
it's like the best of both worlds.
It really is, though. Yeah.
Literally. So I put up like a question box and we got some questions in. So let's just
hear
see
'em.
what questions we have. And
I'm
also
very
kind of want to
excited.
answer an email. In every episode I answer emails. So maybe we'll answer an email and you guys could give some advice to people.
Sure. Oh, I'd love to.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are, a different perspective, so why not? So this question is most of the time it's 2 women and 1 man. Why do you think that is?
Don't get me started on male. Or don't get me started on male, female triads. That's because a lot of how am I going to answer this politically correct?
I mean, it's socially acceptable, right? For
Yes,
2 women and
it's-
then 1 man.
okay.
And guys are kind of scared to be like,
So
Yeah.
homophobia plays into, so like girls, it's more socially acceptable for girls to be bi than it is for men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the same time, and we said this in an episode once too, like it's easier to accept feminine energy into a relationship than it is male energy. But also like in the media representation of polyamory and non-monogamy, a lot of times that's what you see is like male, female relationships.
Right.
So like threesomes. Even the other day I saw this lube company that I really like, and they used an ad, and it was like a male and 2 girls, and it was like kind of like showing that they were like all about to have sex, and like it's a male and 2 girls. I'm like, okay, like can we not have
How
2
basic.
men? Yeah, how basic.
What's the dynamic like? Because have you had sex with 2 guys and you're the only girl?
Yeah, so I've had both types of
Okay.
threesomes, and I mean, so I've had threesomes where like the men will touch each other and like they're bi, and then I've had threesomes where like the men will not touch each other and like their penises won't even be within like a foot distance of each other. So I don't know. I like it more when the guys aren't afraid of a penis, in the sense that like they don't have to fuck them, but like if they're not like afraid to like get close or like even
They're not
touch
like,
each other. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is so hot. There's nothing to me hotter than watching like 2 seemingly straight dudes blow each other. So hot. and that's
I've
like
not witnessed this even at my sex party experience. I don't think I did.
I want to go to a sex party. Can you guys bring me to a sex party?
yeah, actually
I
I'll
would love to experience
let's
a
talk
sex
about
party.
that offline, because you can come to the next one with us. That's
I'm down.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I think that's just kind of like I said, it plays into homophobia. It plays into just, accepting that feminine energy. It plays into kind of just what we see overall. Like people look at that and they're like, okay, that's like, okay, that's not that bad. So they're more willing to accept it. Whereas if it was like 2 dudes and a girl, then they're like, And I mean, think about like all the examples of, non-monogamy that you see that are legal in the sense of like polygamy in other countries, a lot of time it's a male that's allowed to have multiple wives. Very rarely,
exactly.
Yeah, very rarely.
We're used to guys like having multiple girls and women around
Exactly.
them,
It's like the ultimate fantasy.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
why. And it's kind of a shame because like I know for a lot of us in the poly community, or polyam community, I should say, we get very frustrated by that because we're like, there are so many different like structures within polyamory. Like it's not just male,
and
female,
sexuality
female
is such a
triads.
spectrum, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
That's what I say. Yeah, sexuality is definitely a spectrum. Like I think we're all a little bit bi.
I agree.
Open yourselves up to what
We're
you
all
like.
a little curious.
Just because you want to suck a dick doesn't mean you have to take it in your ass, guys. I'm just saying.
Oh my God.
It's true.
It's so true. Do they openly discuss sexual encounters with other people with each other? Like, do you ever go to like your partner and just like, this fucking session was great, you know?
So in the beginning,
It's like a professional way of saying it. The session was amazing.
How was the sex?
Yeah.
so in the beginning, we weren't as open about talking to each other about it, but then kind of like as we grew into it, we were more open, especially in the last year. So I would say like I'd come home and be like, dude's dick was massive, like could barely take it, or something along the lines of like, how are her tits? And he'd be like, phenomenal, love them. So it's something that you kind of have to decide how much detail you want, because there are people that like they'll make a mention of like, okay, I'm gonna go see this person, we're gonna have a date, we may or may not have sex, just letting you know,
Right.
and like they leave it at that. And then others that like go into like full-blown therapy sessions about like their dates with their other partners. So it's really just about what you're comfortable with, and there have been times where it's like, you know, like that's enough detail for me, I don't need to hear any more. And then but it's always good to like establish like how much detail you want to hear from your partner when it comes to
We
that.
started with the left toe.
Yeah.
Like
Started with the left toe.
some people just
Yeah, so it's all about how much you're willing to discuss. But I know couples that like talk, you know,
Yeah. And
endlessly
you
about
guys
detail.
talk pretty like open.
Yeah, we talk pretty openly about it, I would say.
You ever
but
get
it wasn't-
jealous or anything?
No.
Because that was another question too, was like, do they get jealous?
Jealousy happens. Like I
Yeah.
remember the very first time that we ever hooked up with other people, like the first time we talked about it, I was like ecstatic, like so happy for him that he got to like have this experience. And then the second time that he had sex with that same girl, I was like jealous beyond belief. And I don't know why.
Right.
And so and that's when I was like, it's all about, you're not going to avoid jealousy doesn't just go away when you enter non-monogamy or polyamory. Like jealousy just becomes like how you manage it. And so like it's something that you work to manage. And I think that's where a lot of that growth and a lot of that work comes in. It gets you to a point where you're like, oh, I understand why I'm jealous about this. And, you know, I can work through this or whatever. But essentially that's what happened. I was super jealous about it. And I'm like, why am I jealous? So then I took a moment to kind of be like, what is it? And then I kind of had a little like powwow with myself. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. And like I realized like it was more about like me and a reflection of like myself and the things that I needed to work on rather than like the other person or, you know, or him. So jealousy happens, but I don't mind hearing details. I think it's hot. I get off on it.
Right,
like if, you know, if I've seen him have sex with other girls, like other people, and like to me it's super hot. So like I'm
get that.
Yeah, I'm at a point where like I'm very secure in myself, and like I look at it and I'm like, that's a sexual thing, and I see and it's hot and I like it, but it takes time to work to that level.
Right. Great. Next question. Outside the sexual aspect, what's the biggest benefit of being poly?
ooh.
I would say, for me at least, like all the relationships that I've developed through our non-monogamy and our polyamory journey have like further shaped me as a person. Like I've met some people that have introduced me to parts of myself that I don't think I would have ever known if it hadn't been for them. Or, you know, they've just given me like a different perspective of life, and like, or you get to like experience love with them in a way that's like different than the love that you have with your partner. So I think it just becomes like,
beautiful.
no, it's true. And it just
Yeah.
like becomes this huge kind of like bucket of just like love and abundance. Like I think to one of my partners that I have, him and I met about 6 months ago, very like kind of when we first opened up to like polyamory, and him and I kind of like, we had a great start, and then it got really rocky because I recognized that he was in a place where like he could not necessarily handle all of my sexual freedom. So we took a little bit of a break, and then he kind of went through some self-growth, and then we reconnected. And I would say like after we've reconnected, like I've learned so much in like how I want to define relationships that aren't as sexual in nature.
Are you talking about J2 or J3?
J3.
It would technically be J2.
J2? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, and I love J2. A little sidetrack on that. Like, one of the things that I've loved, you know, in being able to define that, but also like I get brothers out of this because my brother-in-law is, you know, my brother. But like, for example, when she's talking about J2, like Nikki was out of town yesterday, but I find him, you know, like a really good friend. He's a bro. And he and I and one of his other fuck buddies, we went to Rufus du Sol last night, and you know we hung out, we partied with our other friends, and it's just like I was gonna say, you know, as far as like polyamory, and she's right, it's the connections.
Yeah, the connections, the people. And so, like, I look at him and, like, the relationships that we've built, and, like, it hasn't been overly sexual in nature. If anything, like, we've only had sex once in knowing each other almost, like, 7 months, you know? But, like, the love that we've built, like, we say I love you to each other. Like, the love that we've built is just, like, humans. Like, we have, like, intimacy. We have a connection. We have... like a deep love for each other. Like, we don't necessarily have that sexual relationship. We're working on that. We're trying to figure out like how we want to approach that again, just because it's been so long since we fucked. But at the same time, like, just seeing how you can like really like take a relationship and define it for yourself in the way that fulfills the both of you without looking at it from the lens of what society thinks a relationship should look like.
That's true, because I think that, you know, there's a whole soulmate factor, but sometimes you just really, you can't help when you connect with different people that's even outside of like your main person that you married on paper.
Yeah.
You know, like there's something beautiful about like the human connection, sexual or not. So yeah, I like that.
And I think about, like, for example, my husband and his girlfriend. You know, like I said, I'm not huge on having children or having my own family, but like she has a child, for example, and like he's grown a really close relationship with her child, and like, you know, they want a family together in the future, and like I think in a way she showed him the family that he wanted. And I think in a way, like, that's beautiful that he was able to find that part of himself. Like, I think he will be a wonderful father one day. Yeah. And I think her, you know, showing him that is a blessing to him in a way, because I don't know whether it will be with her or with someone else.
And she's okay with, like, she knows about you too and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, her and I, you know, we have a relationship, and and that's a whole nother topic, is your relationship with your partner's
Just listen to their podcast.
Yeah. But and I do think, you know, like, she's a cool person. We went on a lot of trips together. Like, I definitely see the love that the two of them have for each other, but like in a way, like, I appreciate that she was able to show him that side of himself. So yeah, the best part, I would say, the connections that you make with people and just like what they teach you about yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What a beautiful way to like look at all of this. Obsessed. Okay, so let's go over an email, and kind of to wrap this up, we'll just like give some advice. Sure. So this one, the subject is tips of understanding guys.
Oh.
Hey girl, so I'm 24 years old, almost 25 years old, and I'm casually talking to a couple of guys. I try to do this and I don't hyper focus on one and get feelings before they do. Sorry, I can't read. And sometimes people
the same way.
Like, I just, yeah. So I try to do this so that I don't hyper focus on one and get feelings before they do. Recently, I started casually talking to a guy, and I've had a hard time reading him. I can't tell if he's interested in me or just my vagina. What are some signs that a guy is just looking to fuck?
Oh, do you want to start? I have some good ones.
No, go for it. You go.
Okay, if he does not plan a date but wants to plan to meet or hang out, he's not interested in dating you. He is interested in fucking you. And I've had enough one-night stands with the entire city of Los Angeles to know, okay, not the entire city, but a lot of them, to know, like, if a guy makes plans, like, if he wants to actually, like, take you, like, even if it's just for coffee or, like, a hike or something, then he actually wants to know.
Get to know you.
Yeah, get to know you and know whether he wants to date you or whether it's just going to be a sexual thing. But, you know, like, sometimes, like, if the conversation is just sexual in nature and all he wants to do is, like, meet up to hang out, quote unquote, or, you know, and it's going to lead to sex most likely because you guys are talking about sex, like, then that's where the relationship is going to go. So I think guys will really tell you what it is that they want or that they're looking for if you pay attention. I say this all the time.
I don't think I totally agree, because I think you will know when a guy is interested. If
Yes.
you are iffy about it,
Yes.
most likely it's just a surface level thing and he's probably unsure or just wants to fuck.
Yeah, if you're
So-
asking yourself, like, what does he want from me? Chances are he's probably just
You will
wanting to
know,
fuck.
because a guy, when they're interested in somebody, no matter what guy, they will bend over backwards.
Mm-hmm.
They will take you out. They'll try to impress you.
They'll make a reservation.
I mean, even guys too are just trying to fuck, because there are guys who are like kind of manipulative in that fact. But I guess, you know,
More often than not, they won't put that work into it, because like they can just go to the next girl, and
that's true.
Yeah.
And I also think if he really takes the time to get to know you as a person, your traumas, your life, your scars, like tries to like really unfold and see the different layers, like, you know, that's more than just like, oh, what do you do for a living? Haha, we have so much in common. Like, it's something like more in depth, and you could feel that. It's because it will be genuine.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I have a
Cami.
slight different perspective on this as well.
Ooh,
Let's
we
hear
love a
it.
different
And this
perspective.
actually comes from the relationship side of my dom and I, the partnership side. Also pay attention to how intent they are on their own. I'll explain this a little bit more. Because sometimes you may meet men who aren't sure how to express themselves emotionally.
That's true.
Or
too.
they may have their guard up. But in their intentions, they are, even though they might be minor and minute, they are telling you that they are willing to put time. Sometimes you have to remember that, you know, people are going through their own journeys, and you can't take everything that they do personally just because that's how you see it.
Yeah.
Because that might not be their intention. And the reason I say this is because when my dom and I first started out, I was just falling head over heels for him. And it drove me crazy, because all of his actions pointed to either way. Like, when we were spending time together, it was really nice, very romantic. And, you know, we had our dom sub side, but then we also had like the time that we would spend just as like a couple. We would go on adventures and stuff. But then, you know, when it came to like, I like texting every day, but, you know, he didn't. And not only that, but like also just, you know, we had different schedules and stuff. So, but I always took it so personally. I was like, oh my God, like, does he actually like me? He said no this time. But one thing that I did see is with his intentions is he never like left me on red. He always replied, you know, even if it was 6 hours later or, you know, half a day later, he always replied. He would answer my phone calls. So, you know, when it comes to dudes and wanting to know, like, do they want me or did they want my vagina? Also try to see where they are at in life with their emotional, you know, security, their emotional awareness.
That's true. Like, look where they are in life too, because that
Yes.
says a lot.
And it does. And eventually
Their
you will
journey,
see.
their
Because, like, I'll say this. One dude that I was, you know, that I had this little fling with, he was super great in person, but would never text me. And so what I started to do with him was I would not, and this was a while ago, I would not text him and see if he texted me back. And he usually didn't unless he was horny.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. See when they hit you up. Is
Yeah.
it like odd hours a night? Is
Yeah.
it for a certain?
But like with my dom, like, you know, he would still reach out, like even if it wasn't just for sex, like he would still text me. So I
Right.
feel like sometimes like with men, you really have to look to see like if their actions and their intentions are pure, and if, you know, you really have to see like where the honesty lies.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easy to tell when a dude is just kind of dodging you, and you know, once you, like Nikki was saying, you really have to like pick up on, you know, what they're saying.
Get out of the headspace of like imagining what your life is going to be like together. Like,
Yes.
Delusions.
Yes.
Yes.
Get your head out of the clouds.
We've
and
all
look
been
at,
there.
Yeah. Look at the reality of what he's actually doing, and chances are
Yes.
he's telling you exactly what he wants out of this.
Yeah,
And
see,
one
Nicole
tip-
says it much better than me.
And one tip, if you're like me, who tends to fall pretty quickly if you do have sex with someone, is hold off.
Yeah.
Hold off on the sex. Make them kind of, you know, I hate saying like work for it because it's not like you have to bend over backwards for me, but like hold off. That way you could have a clear mind and able to see and look at how he's acting around you and his intentions and his motives. Because I know some, you know, if you're like me, you get into the sex, you love it, it's great, you think he's all into you because sex is great, and then you start living in your delusions that you're building a relationship when you're not. I'm giving a lot of shade to my 25-year-old self, but I mean, it's true though. I think just holding off on sex, if you can.
Here's another pro tip. Tell them
If you're
all
like
your
me.
feelings.
Yeah.
Tell them all your feelings and see
That
which
too.
ones stick around.
Which ones they?
That's
yeah,
true,
yeah.
because if you tell them who you really are
Yeah.
and just don't even like have any shame in that, you're just completely yourself and they're sticking around, they fucking like you.
Yeah,
They're on the
that's,
way.
that's how I was with my husband a month into our relationship, and I was like, we're gonna get married one day because I really feel like you're gonna be a special person in my life, and he stuck around. Like
Yeah.
most guys would be running for the hills. Like, this bitch thinks we're getting married one day, and I've known her for a month. You know,
And even honestly,
So-
like even when it's not about relationships, like there was one guy I had, like he was just like a friends with benefits, a fuck buddy, and you know, we used to like meet up all the time, have sex, and I was always like, I had such, you know, like strong feelings for him. And the last time we talked, I actually like went over to his place and kind of vented about my life because my job was like getting like kind of shitty, and like my anxiety was bad, my depression was like rising, and like after that, he did not speak to me ever since because he saw like
Yeah, he
my
saw that you-
scars.
yeah,
he
and
saw
he
my
couldn't handle it.
scars, right? And I wasn't even bringing
Man,
up our
I was
relationship.
really hoping that was gonna have like a beautiful ending.
But like
I was
that's
like, oh fuck.
but that was the reality check that I got, because there was a point where I'm like, can this be something? Is it just for sex? And then when I showed him my fucking issues and he was like
peace
dipped,
out.
that he was just in it for sex.
Yeah.
No,
So-
with my partner, I early on I would just tell him every single emotion I was having, which probably got a little tiring at one point. But I mean, at least I was trying to be honest. I'd be like, I
Right.
really feel like, and then he'd be like, you need to just calm down a little bit.
Right.
But like, let's look at this a little bit different.
Right.
So, and I'm not saying like, you know, tell him like, you know, I feel happy right now. But you know,
If something's on your mind,
communicate
Yeah.
what you're going through in your mind, and just to like see if they volley back with you, like, oh, okay, you're feeling this, well, you know,
I'm feeling this, you know?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
you know, volley back and forth.
your
If they
feelings are
can't-
valid, so say it.
No,
Own up
exactly.
to it.
If they can't do that, not worth the time.
I will
Yeah.
say, to your point though about like holding off on sex, like I agree with you. Do it if you feel like you need the time to gain clarity on what you feel about this dude.
If you're
like,
someone like me,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
everyone's different. Everyone
No.
could have sex, you know.
Yeah,
but-
and I agree. But I guess what I'm saying is like, don't like that's I think a healthy way to approach it. Like, I'm gonna hold off on sex because I'm going to take this time to figure out for myself how I truly feel about this man and this relationship. Versus what I see a lot of times happen is girls are like, I'm gonna hold off on sex because I'm gonna use this as a reward for when so that he sticks
Oh,
around
yeah,
and
no,
he
no,
keeps
no, no, no,
chasing
no,
it.
no.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's what I'm saying. I'm not
yeah,
into.
yeah.
Don't
no,
do
no,
that.
no, don't do that. Like, to have sex whenever you feel like having sex with a guy, but if you feel like you need that time to like figure out for yourself like how you really feel about him and you want
Good
to take
call,
sex
yeah.
out of the equation, that's I think totally a healthy way to do it. But do not like use it as this like carrot that you're like dangling
That's
for them.
manipulative. That's
Yeah, no,
fucked
no, no,
up.
no, no.
That's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
That's not fun.
I think that's like a good distinction to make because sometimes
so true, though.
people make that like
They
oh,
mix
okay.
the two.
Yeah, I'm like I'm gonna hold off on sex because like it's gonna make him stick around longer. I'm like, no, honey,
No.
like that just means that you've wasted a month of your time now. Now you have sex. Now he's gonna dip.
Because guys don't really like the chase like that. I mean, they do in some aspect.
They do
but
and
if
they don't, yeah.
But if you play with it too much, they're gonna be like, I could fuck someone else.
Yeah, they're like,
It's
I'm gonna
fine."
go play the next game. 'cause
Right,
I'm
exactly,
gonna,
like-
I'm gonna win pretty easy. You know, yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah. Oh well, this
But I-
episode's. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Any
no,
last
I was
words?
gonna say no. I was just gonna say, you know, I think we live in a society where you know
Yeah.
there is a lot of options. You know, within whatever city you live in, unless you're like in the Midwest. But you know, usually like whatever city you are in,
Yeah.
usually there are options. So when it comes to like starting to catch feelings, you know, take the time to self-reflect a little bit, do some inner growth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then go from there.
It's
And
true.
reevaluate your feelings every day about this person. Maybe do
Journal.
like journal.
I journal
Sure.
a ton.
Because sometimes you forget how you felt about them that one
Yes.
day.
I go back and read it and I'm like,
oh
oh,
yeah.
yeah.
that's why they were fucked up. Why am I caught up in like, oh my God, they're so nice now?
Yeah,
No.
they're perfect. Yeah, exactly.
fucked
Yeah,
up.
and for the love of God, do not like manifest for someone to be obsessed with you. I see that on TikTok all the time.
That's so
And I'm
no.
like,
Toxic.
sis, if you're trying to manifest for someone to be obsessed with you,
That's
like,
an unhealthy, toxic
No.
we're
relationship that
approaching
you're.
this all wrong.
Yes.
No, you
I
gotta
agree.
remember, we attract, okay? We don't chase.
Yeah. Repeat after me. I
Chase. Wait,
I
no,
do
no.
not chase. I
I
attract.
attract.
I love
Yes.
that.
What is meant for me will simply find me.
I love that. That was so good. Well, you guys.
Hashtag TikTok manifestations.
Manifestation TikTok. Oh my God. Well, you guys, you need to listen to Double Team Podcast if you want to hear more. I'm sure they have like a million stories. And I mean, I'm so happy that I met you guys. Shout out to Bradley for introducing us. We'll hang out. Let's get drunk.
Oh my
Let's
God.
do it,
Yes.
I'm so
Let's
and
get
I'm
down.
holding you to that. If you
No,
don't
no, I'm
text me in a
down.
week, okay?
You can text me too and ask. It's okay. It's an open communication.
Oh no, it's just
She's like, you text me in a week.
Finding friends in LA, it's hard. But
I'm here.
No.
Yeah, you just moved here. Let's be friends. I
Yeah.
need more friends.
good.
I
No.
do too. Yeah.
But I need to go out
love
again. I don't
making
even-
connections and like following through with them. You know?
I'm the same way too, because when I actually say like let's hang out, like I mean it.
Yes.
And like I will make that like, and you know, the effort to do it. But there are people in LA and it happens where they're just like, oh yeah,
Let's hang out.
No,
And
like
never
when
do
I
it,
say
yeah.
it, this means I want to hang out. I don't just say it to
Perfect.
anybody.
We're gonna make a reservation.
We are.
Yeah.
We'll just get drunk somewhere.
brunch, mimosas.
I'm down.
Yes.
I got time.
Good.
Let's
I don't
do
have a
it.
job right now. I got time.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm free in the evenings.
Thank you for
yeah.
having us. By the way, this was
This was amazing.
Yes. Well,
I-
plug yourselves, you guys. Plug your Instagrams, your podcasts, everything.
So it's at Double Teamed Podcast on Instagram,
Yes.
and then on TikTok it's also at Double Teamed Podcast.
Yes. Twitter is at Double Teamed Pod, but I will say I'm not on Twitter anymore.
Okay, I'm on Reddit and it's Double Teamed Pod on Reddit.
I need to be on Reddit too, actually.
I
Reddit
love
is a
Reddit.
scary
Okay,
world.
but Reddit. You know what? I love and hate Reddit. I've got some haters on Reddit, but I've also got a lot of my followers and listeners from, because I like to go on there and just like provide resources. Like I said, I didn't know about any of these resources when I entered Non-Monogamy
Yeah.
until I got on Reddit. But even then, people would be like, "Oh, there's tons of books and podcasts about it," and I'm like,
Google
"Where?"
it. Yeah, they're like,
Yeah, and so I'm
Google
like,
it.
Okay, well, let's go figure it out. And then I Google it, and like even the first Google search I ever did, I did not find a single podcast about it. Finally,
So now you have your own.
finally someone mentioned one by name, and then that helped me go look at like the entire
The rest,
category
yeah,
as a
like
whole.
it suggests.
Yeah, and same with books. So I like to go on there and just like, and I don't just plug my podcast. Like I tell people about other podcasts, and I tell people about the books that I've read or
Love
other
that.
books out there. Like, and then the influencers that I follow. Like when people ask for resources, I give them like a whole laundry list of like the resources out there, because everyone connects with things differently.
Yeah.
Like if they don't connect with us, like go connect with one of the different podcasts. But you know,
Yeah.
hopefully they do connect with us. I think we're
Or
pretty
with the
awesome.
You guys
Yeah.
are great.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you're thinking maybe you're kinky, you never know. we provide resources on that too. We like to,
Yeah.
you know, we love the non-monogamy and kinky community. They kind of, you know,
There's
intertwine.
overlap. Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of overlap and intertwining in there. So we have non-monogamy guests, we have kinky guests, and I think we have curated a really, and we always share their stuff too. So it's like, then you can see it. So follow us, you can see them. So yeah.
Love that. And then follow me, Stefanie Maegan, or go to brocotherapy.com. All that shit is there. You guys could send me your stories, your phone numbers. I have like a contact sheet on my website. So send me more stories. Every episode, we're going to read somebody's email. And yeah, love you guys. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so
It was so good.
I love this.
Broke Girl Therapy. Broke Girl Therapy. Broke Girl Therapy. Broke Girl Therapy.